Hello and welcome to Letters Home, a story of a World War II B-17 pilot from Lowell, Michigan, in his own words. And he just so happens to be my grandpa. I'm your host, Annie Whitlock, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, my dad, Mitch McMahon, my aunt, Lori McMahon Summerfield, and Dale Croft from the Lowell Historical Museum.
In each episode of Letters Home, we're going to dive into letters written by my dad during his time in World War II that he sent to his parents, siblings, and friends back home in Lowell, Michigan. We'll be reading his own words and giving context as to what was happening in the world and in Lowell at the time he wrote these.
In this episode, Dad thinks about his future after the war. We learn what the Hedge Hoppers Club is, and my parents welcome their first child.
Well, yeah, big news there. Before we get into it today, we do have a fun little addition to kick off the podcast. So last week, I believe, we talked about how Margaret's second favorite man in Lowell, next to Frank, is Earl Thomas. And we had no idea who Earl Thomas was, but Dale did some ledger searching and found kind of a cute anecdote.
I found a cute story about him. I thought, well, geez, I got to bring this up. It was in the ledger on February 26, 1920. Oh. And it states it was in one of the little, blurbs about Lowell society. Earl Thomas won prize of a youth champion sled for making the most words out of the letters contained in the words Lowell Ledger. He made 173 words.
Well, good for Earl. Wordsmith here.
Yeah, and then one more I found on April 16th, 1931. There was an ad from him that he wanted to trade a cow for a workhorse. So it sounds like he lived in Alto, and obviously trading the cow for a workhorse. I was trying to find a little more about, it sounds like he was they had a farm or some kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was brought up on when you didn't find a grave or whatever. Was there anything about where he was Alto or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
All right. Well, yeah. If any of you know Earl Thomas, or if you have anything to add, comment, message us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube.
Whether or not that trade went through.
I got one more thing. I found an old picture from the 1913 baseball team.
Yeah, this is cool.
The Lowell baseball team, and I was typed in Earl Thomas, and it came up. So here's a picture of Earl Thomas. Was a baseball team, and then next to him is my great uncle, Perrin McQueen, and then next to Perrin was Jim McMahon,
Uncle Jim,
Frank's brother.
Frank's brother.
Okay.
Great Uncle Jim.
So they were all on a baseball team together.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It's so funny.
All right. Well, we'll have to get that picture on our socials and our YouTube videos and things like that. Well, so yeah, some more little tidbits of Earl Thomas. Oh, my goodness. Well, also in our last episode, Bruce was on Air Transport Command in Dallas, and he was hoping for a transfer back to Michigan. The last letter we read in the last episode was from June 10th, 1945, and the first letter we're going to read today is from July 9th, so it's just about a month gap of letters, and we know why. It's the birth of his first child. So, in his own words.
Monday night. Dear Mom and Dad, are you getting used to having a baby in the house yet? It's been a few years since you had one, and quite a few years since you had one of your own. Does it seem like your baby is over 30 years old and now a proud papa himself? Probably it could become a bit sad if you thought of it just in that way. But on the other hand, it must also be a good feeling to know that your children have all had everything that could be given to them. And by far, the most important is a wonderful home life that made them the men and women that they are today. My greatest desire and my fervent prayer is that I can give my family as much, yes, even half as much, and I'll be satisfied. Mark said that you were still feeling good, Mom. Gosh, it's always so hard to leave. I try to act tough about it and tell you you're silly to be sad and I'll only be gone a few weeks, but it's all an act, and I almost gave it away this last time. In a way, that act I put on is mostly to keep my own spirit from cracking. I know that most of your tears are not for yourself, but because you know I hate to leave, so gosh. I didn't mean to get so wound up again, and I guess if you want any news, you'll have to ask Mark for it. If it's at all possible, I'll route my flight over Lowell, but don't expect me to dust off those trees around the reservoir, though I'd like to. There's an AAF regimen that gets kind of tough on that sort of flying these days. The ship I'll take down to New York will be a B-17. I found that out for sure this evening. God bless you for me, your loving son, Bruce. P.S. Don't you be going up those stairs so much, Mother. Say hello to Marie for me. She's a solid customer for my money.
Yep, this
Forgot
is
the
the
PS.
birth of Mary Marta McMahon, your older sister. Right? And he mentions Marie there at the end. That must be Margaret's mother,
Yeah.
right? Your
Yeah.
grandmother?
Marie.
Yeah.
She's a solid customer for my money.
I like
what does
that.
that mean?
I don't.
Giving Marie money or buying her things?
I'm
No,
not sure.
No, not for my money. For if I were to bet, she's solid.
Oh, that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you ask me, she's solid.
Oh, okay. So
Solid
they're
customer.
getting along.
Yeah.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, there's some other news happening around the Reservoir Hill around this time as well, and Bruce wrote about some of this in a letter to his parents on July 15th, 1945, in his own words.
Sunday afternoon. Dear Mom and Dad, I suppose you're really tickled to know that Raj is going to be home and in Ann Arbor for the next 4 months. Remember when you asked me where I got that picture of Raj? Well, that was one of the ones he had to send in with his application. Because I was sworn to secrecy months ago, I was just a bit worried when you saw it, you'd thinking you might ask too many questions. Gosh, it really is some honor for him, though he sure deserved it. It often goes unacknowledged by the Army. I told Marg that at last she was going to meet one member of the family she didn't know. It's going to be swell for Veda, even though she'll be kept pretty busy down there. I'd like to have it so he could fly east with me this week, but because I don't know exactly what day I'll be going, it'll probably be impossible. I'm going to ask for the first ship out of the factory after Wednesday, so it might be Thursday or a day so after when I get a ship. Say, what's this I hear about you taking flying lessons, Dad? Doggone you got to be careful. Even though 72 is quite a span of years, I know that my dad can do it, and boy, how proud it makes me to realize you're learning. Dad, there isn't a man in town who even begins to compare with you at any age. You keep it up, and we'll be changing off driving that ship of yours yet. Gosh, Mom, with all the excitement you've had to weather in the last couple of months, you must be careful, and yet if you're not already a wreck, it proves you have plenty left on the ball. Tell Dad that the one thing he must promise is that I take a ride with him first. If he ever considers soloing, that promise must be kept, although I don't think he should ever need to solo with so many air-minded sons to always ride with him. Well, I'm going to go over play cards with Nuri at a woman's house tonight, so I better get dressed now. God bless you and keep you. Your loving son, Bruce.
Did you all know about Frank flying?
No.
Frank taking flying lessons?
No.
I mean, 72 years old and deciding, I want to learn how to fly a plane.
Kind of interesting.
Learning more about Frank.
Better than water skiing, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe safer than water skiing.
Maybe. Well, so I found in the ledger something called the Hedge Hoppers Club. So this was in the ledger right around the time of this letter, because I always look for the dates to see what's going on in Lowell. And the Hedge Hoppers Club was, and I quote, recently organized for the purpose of furthering interest in flying and in securing and maintaining an airport. So this is a flying club. And Frank and Byrne were listed as supporters of the club. So maybe this is what Bruce is referring to. There was some fundraiser where they could bring in planes, and I'm wondering if this club is giving Frank the flying lessons.
It might be all been part of
Interesting.
it.
The Hedge Hoppers Club.
Yeah.
I know. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Because, I'm thinking, why in the world would you start flying a plane at 72? But I don't know. Maybe
Just
not.
wanted to know how that happened. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. And I also found a note about Roger in the ledger. Apparently, this application that Dad was reading, he was accepted into a 4-month training to be a judge advocate general, and the school is at U of M, which explains why Roger will be in Ann Arbor. So, Dale, what can you tell us about the judge advocate general? What do they do?
Well, digging into this, I found it's an amazing I was very impressed that Roger ended up becoming one of these because it wasn't easy to get there. To become a Judge Advocate General, or JAG, is very difficult due to its highly competitive and selective nature, requiring strong academic performance, leadership experience, and good standing with the military. Applicants must earn a Juris Doctor degree from an ABA-accredited law school, pass a state bar exam, and then navigate a rigorous selection process that includes medical and background checks to qualify for officer training school and a commission. Once selected, they will prosecute service members in court-martials, defend accused service members, and handle non-judicial punishments and administrative separations. They will advise commanders on legal aspects of military operations, personal matters, and compliance with military law and regulations. They will provide guidance on international law, the law of war, rules of engagement, especially during combat or humanitarian relief operations. They will handle civil litigation for the government, negotiate settlements, and represent the government in a federal court. And they will manage issues related to civilian employees, government ethics, information practices, and environmental policy and procedure, process various types of claims against the government, and provide advice on government contracts.
Wow.
Wow is right. That's when I...
So he's basically like a military lawyer? Is that what that is? Okay. Well,
So-
that makes sense because
Yeah.
Roger was a lawyer.
Yeah.
He probably already has half that stuff, the bar exam pass and the...
Yeah.
They said that of the applicants, only 18 to 15% of them make it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's even, I mean, it's
Wow.
very impressive.
Very
So,
cool.
yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that's why Roger is back in Ann Arbor. So a little
Yep.
closer to home than Clovis, New Mexico, but still too far maybe for Veda to visit a bunch, but who knows?
Yeah.
Well, so now it's time. We've just been talking about Lowell news, but now we're going to get into our segment where we talk about what was going on in the world in July and August 1945, and there's a lot of it. There's the Potsdam Conference where Truman, Stalin, and Churchill met to discuss what to do about Germany after their surrender. This is where they agreed to divide up Germany into occupation zones, which led to the beginning of the Cold War. Of course, the biggest world event happening during this time is the dropping of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. That happens in early August 1945. So, Dale, what can you tell us about this event?
Well, before we even talk about the bombing, I want to talk about the reasons they decided to bomb. One was to avoid ground invasion, which was a major concern for potential enormous casualties, both American and Allied, and a prolonged invasion of Japan's main islands, with some estimates suggesting millions could have been lost. The atomic bomb was seen as a way to compel Japan's surrender without this invasion. They wanted to force Japan's surrender, but by the devastating power of the atomic bomb was intended to shock the Japanese government and convince it that further resistance was futile. They also wanted to demonstrate power to the Soviets. After the bombing of Hiroshima, but before the bombing of Nagasaki, the Soviet Union declared war on Japan, which I didn't know.
Yeah, there was that agreement that said they couldn't, but then they changed it once they said, well, once Germany's out, we'll join up with you.
So the U.S. may have
did.
dropped the
Oh, no, I
bomb
didn't
on
know.
Nagasaki to prevent the Soviets from gaining influence in Japan and to protect American military power in the emergency Cold War. And they wanted to make the Japan government surrender. After the first bombing of Hiroshima, the Japanese government did not immediately surrender, as some key military members believed the U.S. could not produce another bomb. The bombing of Nagasaki was intended to eliminate this doubt and directly lead to Japan's offer to surrender. So those were the four main reasons they thought about bombing. Now, the other thing I found was there were 4 cities were considered for the bombing. One was Kokura, which was a city of great military importance because it had the largest factory in western Japan for the production of aircraft, missiles, and other weapons. Another town was Yokohama, was an urban area that had escaped attack so far and hosted important industrial activities, including aircraft manufacturing, docks, and oil refineries. Hiroshima was also very important from a military perspective since it was home to the 2nd Army headquarters, which was responsible for the defense of the southern Japan. It was an important center of storage, communications, and assembly of soldiers. The city's landscape added to its appeal as a place to showcase the bomb's destructive power. The nearby hills could increase damage from the atomic blast, and the rivers running through it kept Hiroshima off the list for targets firebombed. Kyoto was another ideal target. It had a population that amounted to 1 million people. It was a major industrial center, and it was Japan's intellectual center and former capital. Ultimately, U.S. Secretary of War Henry Stimson persuaded Truman to take Kyoto out of consideration, as it was Japan's central center and a cherished city. So Nagasaki was another important port and was chosen to replace it. So that's how they come up with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, the bombing, the atomic bomb blast of Little Boy, which that was the name of the bomb over Hiroshima, and Fat Man was the name of the bomb over Nagasaki, created a searing, bright flash, which most of us probably know all this information, but a tremendous heat that reached thousands of degrees Fahrenheit. The intense heat vaporized human and animal tissue, melted and fused buildings, and ignited everything combustible, leading to massive firestorms. Powerful shock waves exceeding the speed of sound demolished structures for miles around, causing widespread destruction that left a heavy radioactive black rain after the bombings, contaminating the environment and causing radiation sickness in survivors. Hiroshima was almost completely destroyed, with about 70% of its buildings razed or damaged. With a population of 350,000, around 80,000 people died instantly from the blast, with another 60,000 dying in the following months from radiation burns and injuries. Survivors described seeing the city disappear, people with skin hanging in flaps and bodies resembling boiled octopuses.
Oh, my Lord.
Loss.
Nagasaki, with a population of 270,000 people, experienced less overall destruction than Hiroshima due to its hilly terrain, which limited the bomb's impact. However, thousands of structures were destroyed or badly damaged, and 73,000 people died instantly within a kilometer of the blast center. Of the approximately 500,000 people from both cities, there were only 270,000 survivors. These survivors suffered from widespread illness, malnutrition, and long-term health effects like increased rates of cancer and chronic disease. Both cities required extensive rebuilding efforts over many years to recover.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's like almost half the population of a city just destroyed
yeah.
by us in seconds. That's crazy. But yeah, so this is, I mean, obviously huge world news at the time. Like no one had ever seen this before. And yeah, like Dale mentioned, people are waiting for an invasion of France. That's what they think is going, or France, oh my God, Japan. That's what they think is going to happen. So before the bombs were dropped, Bruce actually wrote a letter to his parents, and it talked about some of his thoughts on the end of the war, as well as the anniversary of the Air Corps. And so this letter was written on August 1st, 1945, in his own words.
Wednesday afternoon. Dear Mom and Dad, well, Dad, by now you ought to be all rested from that trip, or should I say 2 trips to Detroit. Mark said that you were all dressed up and went to the gun club Thursday night. How in the world do you do it? It looks that for the time being, I'll not be getting a transfer to Romulus, but as I told Mark, there are 2 men in the comm department down here that have not been overseas, and so it's only a question of time before they are assigned to go over. I've talked with Colonel Andrews in Cincinnati, and he told me that as soon as there was an opening down there, that he would see that I got it. So there's still plenty of chance that someday I'll be transferred. I really think that I've gotten a good deal on this apartment. It's quite a lot like the one in Kingman. In fact, it's just like it as for arrangement and size. However, this will be a 2-bedroom outfit and should work out really well for us, as we can make one room sort of a nursery and let Marta have a good place to stay when we have company. The stove is a lot better than those in Kingman and has a gas range and the new type. And will not have as nice of an ice box, but it's a good box, and they'll deliver the ice every morning. You tell Mark that I'm going to make sure that the iceman isn't good looking, too. The biggest trouble that we're going to have is with the heat. It's really hot out here, and before I have them come out, I'm going to make sure that this air conditioning outfit I'm making will really cool off the apartment. If you remember, Dad, that one looked like the one in Kingman. You'll get a good idea of how this one is going to look. Besides that, I'm going to see if you can rustle up some kind of an old electric fan that we can use to supplement the unit. We're having a lot of doings on the post today, as it's the anniversary of the Air Corps, and so they're letting in the public in to see the ships. The papers have been carrying a lot about the new jet-propelled ship we have out here, the P-80. And so by tonight, this place will be packed. Some of the statistics that haven't been released is that it will go as fast as the speed of sound, and that there's no ceiling on it, as it operates more efficiently the higher up it goes. As you know, with gasoline engines, the altitude is one of the prime factors in the limits of speed and performance. However, in a jet-propelled ship, it is just as the reverse of this. The higher they go, the less air mass pressure there is on the ship for it to overcome, and therefore Without the prop, which depends on the air's density for its operation, its efficiency will only be impaired by the height that a man can survive at. I've been reading a little bit about the future of this method of flight. It really gets to be about as fantastic as any of the Buck Rogers stories you've read. How are you feeling, Mother? After all the excitement of the last few weeks, better, I hope. If we didn't always have so much excitement in our family, perhaps you could have time to clear back on your feet. But the way it goes with us, there's never a dull moment. Sure is swell that Roger has finally gotten down there, and I know it'll only mean a lot after this is all over for him to have come up all the way from an enlisted man to an officer in the JAG office. Then, too, I know before very long now this war is going to be all over with. Everyone seems to be confident that it'll be over by Christmas. However, I figure that it shouldn't be over a matter of 4 or 5 months after the invasion of their homelands until the time of that, for all strategic purposes, the war will be over. Then will come another period of change for your youngest son's life, but I'm certainly not going to worry about it now. I'm quite confident that as long as I want to stay in, that I can as an officer, and that means that I can just watch for an opportunity to get into something and then get my discharge. I know that Marg will be happy if we eventually settle in Lowell, and she's told me that numerous times in her letters, and you know that I could never be completely happy anywhere else, even if it does mean that I won't be making a lot of money. Well, I'll sign off for now and try to write more often to you, although I do think that I'm doing pretty well with Marg these days as far as letters go. God bless you, keep you in good health until we can all be together again. Your loving son, Bruce.
I love the joke about the Iceman. The ice
yeah, there you go.
Crazy. And I love how he's predicting the future of air travel. Jet-propelled planes. This will be crazy.
Only can tolerate as much as a man can tolerate, yeah.
But he's also,
cabins.
I know, that's so funny. But he's also predicting that it shouldn't be too much longer for the war because he's thinking there's going to be an invasion, right? So he's saying it'll be only a few months after that. Of course, as Dale just said, the invasion does not happen, and the war would essentially be over in a matter of days from the letter that he writes this. So It's kind of interesting that he's predicting the invasion, which, of course, does not happen in that end. So the next couple of letters we have reveal that Bruce is thinking about the end of the war, even though he thinks it's months away, not days, and what he wants to do afterwards. So we're going to read a couple of excerpts from a letter that he wrote on August 4th, 1945, in his own words.
Saturday. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm sitting here with the temperature hovering around 95 and the humidity out of sight. Naturally, my shirt is soaked through, and still the water drips down into my pants, and this would be soaked through also if they were made of as light a material as my shirt. It's hot, believe it or not, but I could write pages on the heat out here, and it wouldn't make very interesting reading. Boy, what I wouldn't give to be able to go out into the hammock, even the one with a hole in it, and get some of that cool breeze on me. Oh well, I've learned that as long as I'm in the Army, there are going to be a lot of things I'll never get used to. But I also know that this won't last forever. Just wait until Marg and I can be in Lowell permanently, and then know that I'll never complain again as long as I live. At least not seriously. I know that you think, Mother, that I'm more or less cursed with being a restless soul, and you have a lot to make you think that way. After all, I always have been. However, over 3 years in this Army has done a few things to me, and I know that one of them is to have an appreciation for a nice, orderly life with a family. So often of late, when I'm in some strange city, I think, I wonder if someday I'll miss all this rapid change of scenery excitement. My answer to myself has always been the same. Not in 1,000 years. I've always been a person that could see ahead as well as both sides of a question. With such attributes, I should have been a millionaire a long time ago, eh? But seriously, I do know that I'll be one of the most settled of your children when Marg and I can live as Mr. Average Man again. She'll tell you that while we were in Rantoul, we spent so many nights just sitting on the Davenport until time to go to bed, which makes just one more thing that she has done for me, to get a kick out of staying home and listening to the radio. You should have heard us on many of those nights. I think you would have agreed that we could entertain ourselves. You know yourself what a lot of fun it is to live with her. Maybe she told you about laughing in the middle of the night at a train that was on a siding by our window and used to wake us up. Nope, I don't think you'll ever have to worry about me ever being restless again once this is all over and I have myself settled in a job that will bring the groceries home every Saturday night. Gosh, what a long spell that was. I'm sorry that you weren't around last night so that I could say hello to you. Marg had so much to tell me, and her condition has has me just a bit worried. I wish you'd give me the dope on it, Mother, and tell me whether you think it's the thing to do to have her get it taken care of once and for all right now. I know that it's really bad when it's bothering her, and I think that she would have it taken care of right now, and that it would be the only thing to do. Anyway, in your letter, let me know what you think. I'm going down to the maintenance office now, so I'll sign off. God bless you, and your son will remember you in his prayers tomorrow in church. Bruce.
So he's thinking about settling down in Lowell. Yeah. Spoiler alert, he does. He's actually looking forward to doing it, which is cute. You all knew him after this, obviously. Had he given up his restless ways like he said he would? Was he a homebody guy that just Mr. Average Man, as he writes in the letter?
Yeah, I think he liked being home.
Yeah.
He did like being home. Mom was the one that wanted, we took, trips to see Marty in Chicago and different places, and Dad was just really content to be at home.
That's so funny. He's the world traveler this entire time up to this point.
One other thing it reminded me of, because it said you should have, listening to the radio, I was thinking about how Dad had told me that that Lotta predicted television. Because Dad said that they were listening to the radio one time, and Lotta said, one of these days you're going to be able to see those people that are on the radio. And Dad just thought, it made an impression on him, because then he said, she predicted television.
Wow.
Which is really kind of crazy. Yeah.
It is crazy.
Interesting. Yeah.
It is crazy.
Whatever. Just a little tidbit.
So he was right. He was the most settled Mr. Average Man after the war. That's good. The end of this letter refers to something bothering Margaret, and we're going to kind of finish reading letters today with one that fills in some more details about this, as well as reveals more of Bruce's post-war plans. This one is from August 12th, 1945, in his own words.
Sunday night. Dear Mom and Dad, I just finished talking to Margaret in the hospital, and she was a bit in a low mood, but you don't need to say I told you about it, because Poor kid, she's had so much trouble with that fissure, and I'm sure glad that it's been taken care of. Just about an hour and a half ago, they came out with a bogus peace flash. I wasn't even a bit excited, and so it wasn't any disappointment to me. It's strange, but I'll bet most of the celebration is done by those who weren't actually ever in combat. And so now I'm really getting anxious to get out of the Army. My chances are nil right now because I'm recommended for permanent commission. This doesn't mean that they could keep me in, but it does mean that they'll be reluctant to release me early, which all comes to what my future plans will be in this glorious day. I can put on a nice blue and red striped tie and know I'll never have to wear a drab khaki one again.
Let's pause this letter for a second. So Marg had a fissure, which is, I guess, a tear in your skin or your tissue. And I was wondering if that had to do with, it's got to be a postpartum
it is.
issue there, because she had just had Aunt Marty. His letter was written on August 12th, where he mentions the bogus peace flash. So there was actually talk of a Japanese surrender this particular weekend that he wrote this, but nothing official yet. So the bombs have been dropped at this point, and they're talking. There was rumors that this had come out. So he must have heard the rumor and went like, "I'm not getting worried about this yet," or "I'm not.
Right,
I don't
thinking
believe
about
it." Seems like he's definitely not wanting to get his hopes up, but he's not going to have to wait too much longer for the Japanese surrender. And we're going to talk about that next week. But we're going to keep going with this letter. So, in his own words.
I was wondering, Dad, if you had any ideas that might lead to a business or a job. It's a good thing to keep an eye out for something, and then when something looks good, I can step out of here. Margaret, I know, wants me to get out bad, and she isn't too particular what salary will be attached to my future services. Just keep your eye open for me around there, or rather, what businesses would pay $100 or so a month and maybe someday do better. I've got to thinking that if I were in a business in town with all my friends and all the walks of life, I should do all right. Might even get Mort Simpson to make an offer on a clothing business like he once made when I was in the station. In that case, I'd buy Ed out and try to finance a real clothing store with good stock. Oh well, just an idea. On a courtesy patrol last night in Dallas, I was on a courtesy patrol last night in Dallas, and what a job. From 9 until 12, we walked a beat, giving gigs to enlisted men who failed to salute, were not dressed properly, etc. I gave out a mess of gigs, but I didn't have any trouble with any men. At 12, we went back to Santa Fe Building, headquarters of the 8th Service Command, and I had a critique with the Provost Marshal. Today, I didn't do much of anything. After Mass, I drove into town for breakfast, watched a ball game this afternoon until I got so hot, I came out of the club here on the field and loafed until supper time. I might try to leave before long. If I do, I'll get home for about 2 weeks. It's also possible that I might get a transfer to Romulus sooner now. I know that a couple of the men down here are of such an age to make them qualified for immediate discharge. Guess I better hit the hay now. God bless you and keep you for me. Your loving son, Bruce.
Yeah, and he still does not know that he's about hours away from the entire war ending. He's
That's
just
crazy.
assuming it's not going to happen quite yet. He did start that clothing store.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was more than just an idea.
It was. And I just thought about this just now. He's talking about wanting to wear a striped tie instead of a khaki one.
Yeah.
Like he's ready to, wear some nice clothes.
Different
So
colors, yeah.
he's got clothing on the brain, probably. Going to buy out Ed, who's his brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So he must have had the clothing store first.
Ed Reynolds.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it was Reynolds.
Yep.
It was Reynolds and Son.
And I think they
might
go
be
back,
mixing
they go
that.
in it together, I think. At some
I got
point,
several
right?
advertisements out of
Yeah.
the ledger from it to put on the YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. Well, who's Mort Simpson, though? Do you want to know who that is?
Nope, we'll have to look that up.
Okay,
I'll
Dale.
do some digging this week.
We got to get you on it.
See if we
And again,
can
if
find-
any of our listeners know who Mort Simpson is.
Maybe related to Bart. I don't know, because Mort just sounds interesting.
I know. But he's some financer in Lowell, right? He's trying to get someone to make him an offer. He definitely has his mind on the end of the war, which makes sense, right? He's trying to think about how he's going to set himself up for the future. And in next week's episode, we're going to talk about the official surrender. It's the end of the war. Next
crazy,
week,
yeah.
as next week's episode. So we're in the final days of it, in the war, and we have not very many letters left to read. Just a couple more episodes of letters home, and so we're going to take some listener questions, of course, in kind of our last episodes here. And we had quite a few questions submitted to us from Bill Jones. Dad, Aunt Lori, why don't you explain for our listeners how Bill Jones is related to Bruce? This is another family member of ours.
Okay, well, then they lived across.
Good luck.
They lived across the street from us. So my Aunt
on
Ruth,
Reservoir Hill.
and my Aunt Ruth and Uncle Bill, Mom's sister, Aunt Ruth,
Okay.
and her son was Bill. So and Bill's dad was Bill.
Okay.
There's Bill. But we
Well, I
refer
call
to
him Billy.
I know, but but Bill.
He's a grown man. He probably
Yes,
prefers to
Bill.
go by Bill
Yeah.
at this point. But
Yeah, but he submitted some questions.
he did.
All
Okay,
right.
so he's your cousin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, first cousin.
So Bill had 5 questions, and the first couple are quick. So I think because we don't really know the answers to them, so I think they're quick. He wants to know: did Uncle Bruce get to keep any parts or souvenirs from the planes he flew? And I don't think we have any parts, but we have his jacket because I've worn it. I've tried it on. You've worn it, and we have his medals. But are there any other like?
You got
parts
his
or-
oxygen.
Oh, the
mask.
mask. Yep.
Got his
Any other
oxygen
things
mask.
from the planes that he flew?
There was a little, it wasn't a compass, but it was metal. I can't remember. I might have given that to either Caitlin or Ryan McMahon. It was just some sort of a measurement piece, but it wasn't part of
okay.
the plane. It was something that he used, an instrument, I think, that he used.
Okay.
A small log book, but he didn't write in it. I think he wrote maybe something on the first page and then didn't keep anything else in it. So the rest of it's
Okay.
blank.
Yep.
So not much.
No, he did bring back a Nazi helmet that we used all the
what?
time. As a kid we played war a lot, and that was a really
Where is that?
That's a good question.
Oh,
That-
we need that.
It's not in the house, but it could be buried outside somewhere.
Yeah, it's probably in the woods someplace.
That's probably in the-
I found a lot of things in the dirt in the woods. I have. I found a toy gun. I found a toy plane. I mean, in dirt after we've dug up things. I mean, when you said
my
it was the last of the
goodness.
letters, I thought I really probably should look more. I really should probably. It's a big house, for me.
More than maybe the sequel of Letters Home is whatever Aunt Lori finds laying around or buried in the yard. Okay, that's
Maybe.
interesting. Well, we got to find that Nazi helmet. I would like to see that. He also wants to know, when your dad, Bruce, came home from the war, how much flying did he do around Lowell, and did he teach Aunt Margaret how to fly? And we kind of answered this last week because we're not sure he did a lot of flying when he got back, and we don't know whether he taught Marg to fly or not.
No, I'm going to guess no. Yeah, they probably.
Yeah.
Don't really know.
Don't think
No.
so. He has an odd question. He wants to know if Uncle Bruce had his teeth removed, or we know that he had his teeth removed, but he wanted to know if flying had anything to do with that decision. And I think we talked. Did we talk about
We
this
did.
in this series with my Aunt Susan about when when Amy and Jack guested on the podcast, and we talked about that oxygen mask or like the teeth falling out and being in that.
A dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Could be a dangerous situation if your teeth fell out. Yeah.
So maybe.
But I don't know if that was
maybe.
the case with that or not. For sure.
No, he never wrote that in his letters.
But not the cause of it. Mitch and I both think possibly, soft teeth. I have soft teeth, so maybe candy had something to do with it.
I was going to say, it's probably
Divinity
candy
had a lot
as
to do with
it.
Yeah.
He said he wanted to replace his teeth while he could be away from people, so he didn't have to see people didn't have to see him with his teeth out.
Well,
that's why he wanted to do it in England. So while he's waiting for the teeth to come in, he can be toothless.
And he
where
was
no
in the
one cares.
service, so it was
The
paid
Army
for.
would've footed the bill.
Footed the bill. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Okay, so his last question is one we can probably talk about more. He said that his dad never talked about the war, and he said he heard things from Bruce or his uncles, Raj or whatever, throughout the year. How much did your dad tell you? And he writes, Bruce was certainly a great man and a hero, which, yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you,
we
Bill.
talked a little bit that the stories that he didn't say much, but you do have a story. You do remember a story, Dad?
I do have one story that a dad told quite a few times, and it described a bombing run that he and his crew made through heavy cloud cover and anti-aircraft artillery. Now the clouds got worse the closer they got to their target, and I think it was a ball bearing factory because I remember him saying that the disastrous Schweinfurt mission was on his mind at the time. And the flak was thick, and the navigator, Jack Samway, we'll say, was having trouble locating the IP. The IP is the initial point, which usually was a landmark near the target. And once the navigator had the IP, he set the flight path. But Jack couldn't see through the clouds, and he kept telling Dad he couldn't find the IP. So Dad was faced with a difficult decision, whether or not to circle the target for a second run, which was extremely dangerous, and some pilots considered a 360 a suicide maneuver. If the bombing run was missed due to poor navigation, the B-17 would need to break formation to make a wide sweeping turn to align for a second run, and the crews would be flying directly into an area with fully alerted and zeroed in enemy guns, and the path would be predictable, straight, and they'd be flying through even more flak with the guns already zeroed in on them. And also they'd be burning precious fuel and depleting ammunition that they would have needed on the way back. So Dad waited as long as he could, and do you have the IP, Jack? He said. I need those coordinates. Negative. I can't see anything, replied Jack. More silence on the comms. The sky was full of black clouds of flak. The fortress was bouncing through the thick cloud cover, flying deeper into Germany. So Dad was just about to order the Suicide 360 when he heard the crackling on the comms. Pilot, fly a new heading, 120, airspeed 180. So that's what Dad did. And as is the case, he handed the plane over to the bombardier, who flew straight at the target. And they dropped the bombs, which they discovered later hit their mark, part of a very successful mission. And then when they landed and were standing near the plane on the runway, Dad could tell that the whole crew was excited and relieved and even a little giddy. That was some brilliant flying, one of the crew said. Pulling that IP out of your ass, well, that saved us. Well, don't thank me, Dad said. It was Jack coming up with those coordinates at the last second. What are you talking about, Jack said. I didn't come up with any coordinates. I was blind up there, totally blind. You said, pilot, fly heading 120. I heard you. That's what you said. No, I didn't, said Jack. I didn't say anything, but I heard you. Not me, said Jack. Dad looked at the crew, but they all shook their heads. Nobody had heard anything, except Dad.
What?
I know.
And he told that a few times because I'm sure
and I retold it a couple of times.
And I'm sure because of his faith, because he
Here
knows
my
where
arms is
and
raising
that's
right
something
now.
else. And that's something else. He knew where that divine
wild.
intervention. He knew divine intervention there. Yeah.
That is wild.
He had a couple other strange but true stories. One concerned another B-17 crew, not his, who bailed out over France. And when their plane was shot down, the crew didn't know what to expect when they approached the small farmhouse. And they were welcomed in by an elderly woman who had the table already set for a crew of 9 and offered her condolences for the loss of the one airman who had failed to bail out. That was another one of those, like, what? Yeah.
Like,
And
so
then-
this lady she knew?
A premonition? She had just had the table. Now,
Well, we
did
said
she
her
count?
age.
Did she count parachutes or something? I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe.
But Dad said that, told it as a strange but true story.
Well, I'm sure they
And
all
then this last one that I have, and Lori, we've talked about this, but
I've seen
it
it.
was the scapular story. A scapular is a sacrament. A Catholic scapular is a sacramental.
Oh, I think we have talked about this.
It consists
on the
of two pieces of cloth joined by strips worn over the shoulders, and there are different kinds of scapulars, but I think Dad's was devoted to Mary, to the devotion of Mary. Scapulars are supposed to be worn at all times, but Dad had his sitting on his bed, on a table by his bed, when a gust of wind blew it out of the barracks, and he went out to retrieve it. And while he was out there, he was out there talking to some of the guys outside when the barracks were shelled, and his area was destroyed.
Oh my
Now,
goodness.
Oh, that one I can verify because that one I heard that one, and then I saw the scapular. It was in the basement. They hung it.
I don't know if that proves the story, but yes.
Well, it doesn't necessarily prove the story, but Dad went along with it.
Yeah.
Dad showing us that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
These are wild
I don't
stories.
think he made it up.
No,
I
he
don't
wouldn't
think
have
he would have made it up. Yeah.
I bet we can find what mission that was because I remember hearing we could probably figure out what mission that they bombed a ball bearing factory during heavy clouds. All that stuff would be in there. So.
Oh,
But then
geez,
if,
going
maybe
down that
he's-
rabbit hole.
They go,
Or
yeah,
something
but
else.
I can do it.
Something else.
We found as most of the missions he flew. We've accounted for on this podcast, I think, but
Yeah.
we'll see if we can figure that one out. Wow, those are good stories.
Crazy.
That you heard growing up. Those are amazing ones.
But not a lot of stories. The quality was good, not a quantity of them, but yeah.
And he would occasionally talk about England.
Yeah.
How things
Okay.
were when
Yeah.
he was in England. He brought that up quite a bit.
Yeah, we talked about it at the podcast too. We talked about that. How we just talked about how he reminding everybody. Forgive me for repeating it. How about walking underneath the store
Yeah, with
hangover with the shrapnel coming down. If you heard the planes, you just stepped in, and then they would wait for the
They
shrapnel.
didn't care about the raids.
No,
They were
and
old news.
Okay, fine, and then they would just go back out and walk. And
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that a series Winds of War that Dad saw that was on.
yeah.
Yeah. And it made him sad because he said he never thought about it he just really couldn't think about it from that perspective. When you were dropping bombs, you didn't really think about the devastation that you were creating.
He wrote that a couple times in his letters.
Yeah.
He was like, I can't think about that.
No, right.
You just got to stay in the present and think about what I have to do. Yeah. Yeah, those are some wild stories. Those are some good ones. Well, we have a couple more episodes. Still time for us to answer a couple of questions. So if you have any, send a message to the Letters Home Instagram or the Lowell Historical Museum, and we'll read your question and we'll answer it in a future episode if we have any more. But thanks to Bill for sending those in.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
And thank you all for listening to Letters Home. We hope you continue to listen as we near the end of Bruce's story. You can listen to Letters Home on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Lowell Historical Museum website and YouTube channel. We're down to our final 3 episodes, which will drop every Thursday until we finish. The Lowell Historical Museum has digitized versions of Bruce's letters so you can read them in full, along with primary sources for most of the people, places, and events we've talked about here today, plus more. You can also follow the Lowell Historical Museum on Facebook and the Letters Home podcast on Instagram at Letters Home Lowell. Thank you to Roger McNaughton for our podcast music and to Lowell Radio for letting us record in their studio at Lowell High School every week. Stream it at lowellradio.org. See you next time.